Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our session today under the title Digital Public Infrastructure, Exploring Arab States' Regional Opportunities and Challenges. My name is Danny Wazen, and I'm the Digital Transformation Specialist with the UNDP Arbas Regional Team. Today, we will delve into the important topic of digital public infrastructure, or DPI, and its importance for the Arab region. As digitalization continues to disrupt our life and reshape the region economies, the Arab region faces unique challenges and opportunities in implementing and scaling up DPI elements to be used for efficient public service delivery and achieving economic growth and prosperity for the citizens in the Arab region. DPI includes systems for digital forms of ID and verification, civil registration, digital payments, data exchange, and information systems is crucial for achieving the SDGs. It includes sector-specific end-to-end systems and solutions like health, education, climate, and others. Overall, digital ecosystem requires inclusive planning and strategies, policies and regulations for responsible use of technology, capacity building, inclusive connectivity. DPI has definitely a transformative role to play in the region where challenges and digital access and infrastructure gaps still exist between urban and rural populations. For instance, a World Bank report highlights that during the pandemic, countries who were ready with DPI infrastructure, 51% of their population were able to register and receive payments and support, while 11% in other countries who were not ready were able to access. There are significant opportunities for the Arab region to leverage global best practices on DPI. Different countries like India, Estonia, Singapore have successfully demonstrated how digital ID systems, data exchange systems, and government-to-person payment platforms can be scaled to benefit citizens at large. The Arab region can benefit and can harness these models and can foster for digital cooperation to create more efficient, transparent public service. We want to hear today from our esteemed panelists about all these opportunities and challenges. At the same time, we need to recognize that there are challenges coming with the implementation of DPI. For instance, DPI infrastructure requires most of the time high budget to implement. So what could be the role of the digital stakeholders and society, including the private sector? The DPI requires a strong political will at the country level, and we want also to hear how international organizations can support developing this political will to implement DPI. Also, there is a lack of needed digital policies and regulations, and we do have on the panel regulators to learn how digital policies can support the implementation of DPI. Infrastructure equity between developed urban centers and underserved rural regions remain critical, and today we want to hear how mobile operators can also support the implementation of DPI. Digitalization of public services, data privacy, protection of human rights, and cybersecurity must be at the forefront of our efforts to protect citizens and maintain trust in the digital systems. So we are looking forward today for the conversation on exploring how we can address these challenges and scaling up DPI solutions across the Arab region and ensuring no one is left behind. But before starting with our esteemed panel, we want to hear from you. So we are going to put on the screen questions. If you can please share it. If you could please access menti.com and use the code on the screen or simply scan the QR. We want to have questions to learn from you. While you're opening the Menti, I would like to introduce our esteemed panel. We have with us Ms. Sylvia Solf, a practice manager, digital development in MENA Region World Bank Group. Welcome. And we have also Ms. Marina Walter, our Deputy Regional Director for UNDP Arbas, Arab States. We have also Ms. Nermeen Hassan, Director of International Cooperation with Egypt Post. We have Ms. Ava Nader, Commissioner from CMC, Iraq. CMC is the Communication and Media Commission in Iraq, the regulator. And finally, we have Mr. Merle Ronstege, I hope I pronounced it well, from GSMA, Senior Director, Connected Society. So welcome to the panel. So the first question we have for you on the screen, what do you consider to be the most impactful contribution of DPI to development in the MENA region? And we have several options: public service, digital inclusion, crisis response and resilience, economic growth, public service delivery, or other. So the selection went for the public service delivery as a top priority or top impactful contribution to the SDG, followed by digital inclusion and economic growth. We move to the second question, please. What do you think needs to be prioritized to enhance DPI implementation? For the options, we have technical standards and data exchange, policy and regulatory framework, funding and investment, public-private partnership, research and innovation, and capacity building and training. Thank you. Very insightful. The first answer is the policy and regulatory framework that needs to be in place in order to implement the DPI, followed by capacity building, of course, and funding and investment. We move to the third question. What do you think can most contribute to increasing DPI adoption? Is it broadband access, trust in digital solutions, awareness and incentives, or user experience? Trust in digital solutions and awareness and incentives is from the citizens, of course, is the top contribution to increase DPI adoption. We move to the fourth question. Now, with the role of emerging technologies, how do you perceive the role of AI in DPI? How we can use artificial intelligence and the role of artificial intelligence in DPI? Is it essential for the future, potentially disruptive, neutral, or negative impact? It's as essential for the future of DPI, which is the top answer. So we'll move to our esteemed panel, and we've learned the insights of the participants. So I will start with Ms. Sylvia Solf with the first question. Why is DPI relevant to the region at this time, to the Arab region, and how the World Bank Group is supporting this agenda?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, great, excellent. So why is it relevant for the Arab region, particularly at this moment in time? I would say for two reasons. It's a region that is incredibly rich with a lot of potential in terms of a very young population, a tech-savvy population, but it's also a region that is facing a lot of volatility and very anemic economic growth in many other countries. So yesterday we heard a term that I really like very much, and it's about the role of DPI to be a multiplier for digital transformation and a driver of inclusion. And I think that in the current context couldn't be more relevant for the region. So from this point of view, and we saw here public service delivery, digital inclusion or inclusion and resilience, and I would even package those three even together. We found, and the COVID pandemic offered some quite useful insights. So from the World Bank side at the time, we looked at the effectiveness of governments in delivering services to citizens, and particularly in crisis times. And we found that in countries that had safe and trusted data platforms, digital ID and payment systems, they reached 3 times more beneficiaries. So the impact was quite substantive. Also in terms of inclusion, financial inclusion is a big part of DPI. So globally, almost 160 million people opened a bank account to receive payments from the governments in a digital way. So it really is a way of bringing people into the digital world, but also then allowing them to be more resilient and for the government to deliver services in crisis times. The second aspect, and that kind of bumped up a little bit over time, was economic growth. And I would like to add to that job creation as well. So again, the World Bank likes to do studies, so we did do an estimate, and if there was universal tech adoption, the growth potential in the region, it could increase by 46% and job creation by 7%. And what is behind that? So we also heard yesterday, for particularly payment systems or DPI, plays a role in encouraging innovation in the private space. So you have new business models evolving. SMEs can participate more easily in the global economy. Also, at the firm level, firms that adopt digital technologies, they create more jobs, and more importantly, they create higher jobs with higher wages. And lastly, yesterday we heard from the ministry about the power of the ICT sector and how it's seen really a double-digit growth in Egypt. Globally, the services sector, and half of that is now delivered digitally, accounts for 50% of employment. It's the fastest growing sector and really an opportunity to create opportunities for people in the region to participate in an inclusive, revived growth momentum. So to the second question, what is the World Bank doing in this space? So the World Bank has been working and supporting client countries around topics in DPI since 2015, so quite substantive time. We have 2 major platforms, ID4D and G2BX, that support the rollout of digital IDs for citizens. Now I feel I'm eating this microphone. That supports the rollout of digital ID for citizens. By now we've worked in over 70 countries. And the G2BX platform focuses particularly on what I was just speaking about. It's about providing or supporting governments in putting in place payment platforms that deliver services effectively to citizens at any time. So those are 2 major platforms. At the global level, it really has been now elevated, I would say, even more. So the World Bank Group just initiated the Vice Presidency for Digital Transformation. And under that, we have a global challenge program, and it's actually one of the few global challenge programs in the World Bank Group. And DPI is a core pillar of that program, really to support inclusion, economic growth, job creation around the world. It is also one of the priorities of what we call the IDA window, which is a window that provides financing to low-income countries around the world, and there's a solid commitment behind that. And last but not least, it is one of our major scorecard, global corporate scorecard indicators relates exactly to the point one that everybody was raising, which is not just about providing public service delivery, but people benefiting from the service that is being delivered. Because it's one thing to put a platform in place, it's another one for citizens to actually benefit. And just grounding this a little bit in the region, kind of some of the work that we've done, the bank has been supporting payment systems in Jordan, in Yemen, digital ID systems in Morocco. We're also working on a very innovative citizen-centric platform in Jordan. And oftentimes we focus on high-impact sectors, so health, education, and again, it's really about providing services to citizens. And DPI, as I started, is the multiplier to be able to do that and scale it up. So thank you. Let me stop here.
Thank you very much. Very insightful, especially how the DPI can enable economic growth, public service delivery, and inclusion by having these initiatives or interventions that can enable cross work on digital payments, digital identity, and others, and foster for more impactful solutions. So we move now to UNDP, to Ms. Marina Walter. And the question, how do you see investment in DPI as supporting achievement of the SDGs? And how is UNDP supporting this across the UNDP Arab States region?
Perfect. Thanks so much, Dani. I'm trying to move closer to the mic. And I think it's interesting to listen to Sylvia and the World Bank colleagues, because I think we're very much going into the same direction, feeling the same, thinking the same. I mean, I think DPI, the way we look at it, is just this one massive enabler that can change societies, that can change the way societies interact with their governance systems and vice versa. And I think it really is an enabler that changes really almost every sector, right? Whether you look at governance, whether you look at the whole gambit around inclusion, financial inclusion, social inclusion, down to very specific sectors such as education and healthcare systems. And we heard a lot of examples this week. So for us, I think DPI is really, not only for this region globally, but very much also this region, one key item that will help in the achievement of the SDGs. And it really will move, it will help move governments, it will help move whole societies forward. If you look at the governance systems, I mean, you know, this whole effort now to develop digital ID systems, you know, e-payments that make access to government services easier, creating data sharing platforms, very much with the notion of trust, because it was interesting to see the results here, right? The big issue, or the elephant in the room is still the trust issue when you look at governments using database and having that access. But once this trust is established and the platforms allow for that, it makes for a more transparent, a more accessible governance structures that are much more citizen-oriented. Climate change is a huge topic for us, and we feel that if you look across countries, very often data access, the availability data on what climate change really does, the results are not there. And so DPI is another one that really helps and allows many of the countries to, you know, accumulate this data and creates this enabling environment also to monitor, not only accumulate, but monitor where is it going, and to document those trends, which is very powerful because you still have a good number of people out there that challenge the notion of climate change. So being able to connect the dots across the different pillars is very, very important. And we talked, I think, this week a lot about, you know, also the importance of fostering economic growth, right? Digital payment systems are so important for small enterprises trying to get going, startups. And so I think DPI has really this massive role to play by helping countries to digitize the whole ecosystem that allow a smoother build-up of economic capacities and really widen it. And I think again and again, if you talk to small startups and SMEs, they would outline how important it is to have database access, to have an easier way of interlinking their work with governments, but also the competition, right, in the sector. So it's a huge game changer. I think for us, and I think I said in the beginning, DPI is also a key in, you know, closing this digital divide that we very much see. I mean, you see it between countries, but you also see it within countries, right? You know, the more young people, the more, particular also the, you know, the segments at the outskirts of society, underprivileged segments of society have access, can access their services, can demand, can access, you know, their governments by being enabled, the more egalitarian, the more sustainable and safe these societies will become. So it's for us a huge game changer throughout, in fact, through a whole gambit of ideas. And, you know, asking what UNDP is doing, I worked across the globe in different regions. I spent almost 10 years in Asia Pacific. And so now looking at the Arab states, I think UNDP, together with all the partners, has one main role really to accelerate. Because I do feel, again, having spent, being from Europe, having spent 10 years in Asia Pacific, that there's still a lot to do, right? And there's a lot of potential in the region. There's a massive young population with a hunger to really drive it. A lot of really promising entrepreneurs. And so one of the things we're trying to do as UNDP is, first of all, bring them all together. We're trying to bring in the room the regulators, the operators, the private sector, throughout startups and the governments, right? To in the same room choose the same language and to agree what is it we have to do in each of the countries to move this forward. And then also really help support governments in accelerating. And we have across the region many examples. In Somalia, I think I talked about it on the first day, is one of the examples where we really supported the development of mobile money systems and really pushing this idea of financial inclusion by, again, broadening the gambit of who can participate through developing a digital identity and making sure that you can actually participate in the monetary system. I think I talked about the importance also of DPI in a crisis context. We had just signed with 2 mobile operators that are helping us to manage finances in the context of Gaza, and that's a problem. If you have a complete breakdown in many crisis countries of the systems, of the banking systems, people still need money, people still need access. And so we're trying to also, as UNDP, to push this, explore and find, and very much close together with our humanitarian partners, right, working with displaced people and refugees. What role has DPI to play and can play to help ease the burden in a moment of crisis? A big issue, again, and it's interesting to see that again it comes up, the issue of trust, right? So working on data protection laws, data privacy, data privacy is very important, really, to again and again try to establish, by promoting the development of certain legislation and also an open discourse, promoting governments to really go out and say, you have to earn the trust, right? If you want your citizens to participate, buy in mobile apps that you are deploying, developing, that will only happen if they trust you, no? So the more open up you are about the safety of the citizens' data, the bigger the chances of the participation. I think I ended at that. It's throughout. One last element I would say for us that's really important is capacity building. Because we find that, you know, I mean, last week we were discussing with some of the private sector entities, EAND or REDO in the region, you know, the fact that you still have a global divide. For example, if you look at the area of AI at this point is very much dominated by the United States, right? The efforts there, I mean, they're out there. So how do we make it a more equal market? How do we support not just the operators and the local capacities that in different regions, like this one in different countries, you create an environment where there is more growth, but also how do you train and build the capacities of the counterparts in the bureaucracy, right, in the ministries, that they can actually join the conversation, that they know what it is, because only if you have, a bureaucracy and governments that really understand the importance and understand how to engage, this will increase and grow in countries. So we are also investing a lot in just building the capacities throughout of governments. And I think I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move now to hear about the infrastructure, because the infrastructure is very important in enabling DPI. And we want to listen about the role of the private sector and the mobile operator. So with Melly, I wanted to ask, how can operators and mobile operators support adoption of digital solutions enabled by DPI layers, especially answering the question of digital inclusion, because we've seen it on the screen in different responses. So can you share the experience here?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I think it's important to understand DPI does not exist in a vacuum. It's really in that connectivity context where mobile operators play a significant role. And the good news is that here in the Arab region, the region is more connected than ever before, and over 90 billion will be invested by mobile operators in the region between now and 2030. But there is still a significant digital divide, unfortunately. So there's about 300 million people in this region that are left unconnected. And when we look at the unconnected, we split them between those who lack access to broadband infrastructure, so where there's actually no connectivity or ability to connect. And that percentage is actually very small. So it's only 4% of all those are unconnected. They lack access to a broadband network. So the vast majority of the people who are left offline, it's for other reasons that are related to adoption. And I think that's very important when we think about DPI. You can have all the best technology in the world, but if people are not adopting it, we don't realize the vision that we all have for a digital future. And there's a couple of reasons why people don't adopt mobile internet or other digital solutions. And we look at that from different perspectives. So we look at it from the perspective of just simple adoption, but also from the perspective of regular and diverse use, because it's one thing to try it out one time, but it's a different thing to make those digital services part of your daily lives. So we even see a significant drop-off from people who have adopted digital services to those people who use it regularly. And that is a drop-off about half. So the digital divide doubles, basically, if we look at those different stages. So there's a couple of barriers that people face. The most important is the handset affordability. For many people, that's a significant investment to make. In some areas, for the poorest 40%, it can represent up to 80% of a person's monthly income. So it's really important that we focus on improving the affordability of handsets and devices, because mobile, in the end, is the primary and very often the exclusive way that people access digital services. So also when we think about digital public infrastructure, we need to have a very mobile mindset. It seems like, being from GSMA, we're biased because we represent mobile operators, but we gather the data and we know for a fact that mobile connections account for over 80%, around 83% of all connections worldwide. So let's really have that mobile mindset when we think about digital public infrastructure. So going back to these devices, even when people have a device in this region, so we look at people own a smartphone, it's great, they're engaging in digital services, but around 1/3 of the people who own a smartphone, that smartphone is only 3G capable. So I don't know if many of us remember here in this room who are a bit more privileged what that level of connectivity was like. But even if there's the 4G infrastructure and you still own a 3G handset, you don't have a particularly great online experience. So we need to focus not only on those people who don't have any device, but we even need to think about those people who own a device. How can we upgrade them to have a better connectivity experience? Other challenges that were also mentioned before is the lack of literacy in digital skills. That's a very important challenge. So mobile operators do a lot of work also in this region in terms of upskilling people. Focus is mainly on those who are first time or who have never been online. So very basic digital skills. In a lot of conversations and fora, there's a very big interest of governments and development partners to focus on digital skills focused on coding or developing digital services really focused on the job market. But I would urge everyone to also look at the perspective from the end user and the consumer to focus on the digital skills that bring people online in the first place. Because if we don't have people that use digital services, there's no digital ecosystem, so there's no point in having the creation of digital jobs. So that's the second very important point. Third one would be around safety and security concerns. I think that was discussed before already. Also from a consumer perspective, there's a lot of questions of you know, how is my data being treated? Is there enough consumer protection in place? So there's different ways that the mobile industry tries to tackle these challenges, and with regard to DPI, the industry has a lot of experience already with bringing people online in the mobile money system. So in the Arab region, there's about 70 million mobile money users, and there's about 30 different services live. And I think when we think about DPI, it's important to be clear about where the investment from, let's say, the public sector really enables the private sector to thrive and not create a competition between the public and private sector. Because one of the big questions is, like, mobile operators are very good at investing in technology and developing the services that people want. But who is going to foot the bill for the investments that are being made by the public sector? So is that maybe better left off for the private sector, and how do you create those synergies? I think that's there's more questions related to DPI, but I think that's one of the core questions, like where's the money coming from? So there's much more to say, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. This is very insightful. We've heard about how DPI is a priority for the Arab region, how it can support the SDGs, the role of mobile infrastructure. But now we want to move and listen about a practical experience coming from a country. And we move to Mr. Min Hassan, the Director of International Cooperation of Egypt Post. And the question is, given the ongoing digital transformation in Egypt and a lot of efforts being done here, including the modernization of Egypt Post and the role of Egypt Post to enable the digital governance and the expansion of e-governance services, what have some of the early successes have been in your experience of the DPI? And what opportunities do you see for leveraging DPI and scaling up solutions both within Egypt and abroad?
Thank you, Danny. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, it's a very good question and very long one. I'll try to brief as much as I can. Egypt Post has transformed from a traditional postal service provider into enabler of digital empowerment of the Egyptian society. The journey started when we used to have, provide 15 services, postal and financial one, domestic and international, and reach 170 service. It's provided in 4,600 post office all over Egypt, and what is provided by Egypt Post, it is inclusive. Without a proper DPI, we will never can expand the service offering or even technology adoption, because it will be simply a nightmare if the time of processing of transactions is long. So a very good connectivity all over Egypt for remote area, even to reach there, was important and fundamental for us in order to expand and to adopt more technology. The service that we provide today, it starts from digital financial services, and the numbers is huge, because we are talking about more than 30 million electronic payment card issued, billions of transactions every year. We serve 3 million walk-in customer citizens to our post office every day. This is without the peak times. And even we have 4.8 million women for saving account holder in Egypt Post. So we are talking here about real inclusive services provided all over Egypt. And it has to be at a good quality and affordable rate. And this is another concept that Egypt Post is committed to provide. This has paved the way in front of us to even explore more digitalization and to be part of the Egyptian DPI. We are not talking today about only, first of all, I'd like to highlight some facts that Egypt Post today is serving 4 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is no poverty, decent work, responsible consumption and production, and climate action. We already committed to this, and we already provide a service that enable SMEs to access international markets and domestic markets, have a full, complete financial services, online transactions, money transfer, C2C, B2C, C2G, with all different types, and even for also inbound cross-border money remittances as well. But today, we are not only exploring, the financial or shipping or logistics or e-commerce services, even just to have it all over Egypt, into the 2 directions, for SMEs to export or even for users to import and to have this accessibility to very important economic aspects of e-commerce. Today, we are talking about Egypt Post has started the way in the regulations, in the technology to provide electronic registered mail service. And it will have a huge impact on the digital transformation all over Egypt. We are talking today about processing 150 million letter mail items, which are mainly legal binding correspondences among the government and citizens. We are launching Baridi, which is a digital mailbox based on the national digital identity of Egyptian citizens to enable all the government entities to instantly send these correspondences digitally to the citizens. And we here adopt the international standard of Universal Postal Union about the digital identities, digital timestamps, the encryption, the data integrity. All doing this is for the domestic environment here in Egypt, but our eye is on even the cross-border transactions. Egypt, as a member of Universal Postal Union, we also connected on the International Postal Network, .post. So also we are qualified to provide this service on a cross-border level. In 2022, the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law has adopted the model law for the cross-border recognition of digital identity and trust services, which is mainly about electronic registered mail. This will open the way among the nations to use the digital correspondence as well for trade and for e-commerce as well. If you are talking today about doing this without have the proper regulations in Egypt, without have the proper digital public infrastructure, it's a dream that will never become true. But it's a dream that will come true simply because we have a digital identity platform that was easy for us to integrate to, and even to go for the regulations and to acknowledge the service legal impact as a digital equivalent for the same legal impact of the physical services. The service offering itself, the terms of use agreement with the citizen, the awareness, what is the impact of the service, its impact on the transparency and the anti-corruption and the ease of doing business and the acceleration of the legal system in Egypt. All this contribute fundamentally to the complete digital transformation of the Egyptian government. We are happy to serve in this public component. That will be important part, I believe, for important part for the digital public infrastructure for Egyptian society. So thank you. So I believe it's.
Thank you very much. It's impressive how can systems like digital identity, proper regulations enable countries to do services, especially in terms of postal services that can enable e-governance. And building on that, I want to move to the last but not least of the esteemed panel to speak about the importance of the digital regulations. And it was one of the top priorities to the implementation of the DPI. And I want to move to Ava Nader from Iraq, the regulator, CMC. And I want to ask you, what are your regulatory and policy priorities for supporting DPI implementation in Iraq? And what's your role and vision as a regulator to support the DPI agenda?
Thank you, Danny, for this question, and thank you for the hosting country for this a very insightful and important event. The first thing come to my mind as a regulator, it's the dilemma of everyone ask me, regulate or innovate. I believe as a regulator who worked before even in the private sector, I always come to this conclusion to find the common ground between innovation, fostering innovation, nurturing innovation, and doing what needed to be done as a policymaker to protect citizens. I believe the question shouldn't be asked this way, although we've been asked all the time. But with a country who is suffer from like a history of instability, DPI, it can play a significant role to bridge the gap and take us to another level in a very limited time. So there is many aspects of challenges we face every day. It's first of all, it's the data issue, the data governance. You know, it's a very little this terms is being used, or there is a policy, very robust policy all over the world related to this part of like a data privacy, data sovereignty, data ownership. As a citizen, everyone part of the system will generate data, but how this data being used with the consideration of not jeopardizing innovation. Every day we face this challenge. I believe, and you know, with the fast pace of technology, advancement, AI, blockchain, every day it's a different day. We have to assess, we have to analyze, and we have to make a decision, so bring everyone on board. So a legacy of a country who comes from very centralized history, it is a very big challenge to convince a policymaker, other policymaker who doesn't understand the awareness that it's like it's a building block. Everyone should come and nurture this environment so we come with a more sustainable and develop and support economic growth. So we've been having lots of discussion between the Arab world and not just inside Iraq, that to have a law like the policy regulation like the European Union on how to have at least in the Middle East region a unified code of conduct. Something that a minimum that we can start with and like keep visiting it. It's not putting something like a Bible and cannot be evolved and cannot be developed. But the lack of collaboration, we are not working in parallel. We have a country who's really advanced in Middle East, like UAE, Saudi Arabia, and even Egypt, and we have a country who are behind, which I believe we cannot have an ideal economy and economical growth without working together. we have a main issue of not understanding a cross-culture issue. In Iraq, as an infrastructure, more than 95% we have a digital connectivity, but our challenge is digital literacy. Not just between like the main city and the rural area, age gap. So how to overcome this age gap? Making policy that include everyone. This is one of the challenge, and I believe having this the moving toward digital digital transformation brings so much question together. Democratizing the digital environment and having everyone contribute and feel they are invested in. This is one of the most important. As a country who suffer being like, we are a consumer of technology. We are not an inventor. How to bring everyone on board, be part of international scene, contribute, why we are left behind, how we can contribute, maybe can bring everyone together. But there is still a question, like Silicon Valley, it's in California, and they have a very good data privacy law. By the way, I believe it's just in California. And where is the center of innovation and all this advancement in technology? So definitely there is a common ground we can agree on to foster innovation. And one thing I thought about it, and we were contributing in long discussion with a different stakeholder, that scientist and developer should work in an early stage with a policymaker. Because we have to agree on a shared value. What is our value? We have innovation should come and its core value to serve humanity and to serve human well-being. When a country have this digital divide, you will see always there is a mental health issue as well. We have to take it into consideration. So a UN organization like UNDP, like ITU, I even consider UNESCO as well, because we are, as a commission, we deal with media and technology, which brought everything together. We even believe that UNESCO can be involved to develop certain, like a code of conduct, which at least a minimum we can start from, universal, can help everyone, even the country who's left behind can be protected. Anyway, I cannot stop by telling you how much challenge we face every day. Even I cannot mention them because every day we developed something we didn't know that a day before. It's a very dynamic environment, but definitely today, no way I can compare human and well-being and development. Some people think like before it was better. The life was simpler, and all. There is so much people where we didn't know how much they were suffering, but because of digital inclusion, we started to know about a problem we never heard about. So anyway, at the end, I just believe data governance, DPI, should be have the way we regulate. We should, as a government, we should act as a leader and lead people to have a stake in what their life should be. And no one should be left behind, and everyone can contribute. We can't lead people without telling them that we are not investing in you. And we are investing just about the idea we think that the innovator did, and yes, we're gonna. So every idea can be helpful and can contribute, and definitely Wherever we are as a human, we are a human, and everything, we have so much common disregard of our background, culture. So if I want to sum up maybe 3 main points, which is innovation and regulation, how we can make a balance, how we can cope with the fast pace of digital advancement, and plus how we can bring everyone on board and create a democratic, transparent digital environment. Thank you. I can stop here. It's long, but
Thank you very much. And it's great to hear how the collaboration, the whole of society approach, and the 4 Ps, public, private, people partnership, can come together to design regulations and digital policies to enable DPI. Mindful of time, I would like to move to the floor to open the questions and answers. If you would like to have any question to the panel. If you can introduce yourself, and maybe if we can get a mic, please.
Thank you for the interesting panel. My name is Mariam. I work for GIZ Egypt as a coordinator for Digital Transformation Center Egypt. I believe that everyone on the panel have mentioned digital literacy, and also there is a lot of work done by donor organizations, also GSMA and other organizations, stakeholders in the digital literacy area, but it's still fragmented. So my question to you is, how can we get this together and put it in one so everyone could use it more like an open source digital education or digital transformation e-learning in a way? So thank you so much.
Thank you. So I don't know.
If you want me to, I think first of all, anything you wanted to advance it, you have to invest in this certain area. Plus, I believe, especially in the Arab world, all our education system should be changed. We have to invest from young age how to bring and have like the digital illiteracy can be a part of the main education system, how to overcome it, from young age. I believe we have to change our manahaj, the way we educate our people. So, and we have to, it's definitely need investment, and I believe the private sector, can have a contribution in this through corporate social responsibilities. We have in Iraq, we have, I think, 1.5% from the profit of the mobile company should go to this site for digital illiteracy, for digital inclusion. So maybe this is one of the ideas.
If I can move to Melly also, if you have additional insights.
Yeah, happy to respond to that. In terms of digital skill building, that's something that GSMA supports our mobile operator members with. So we have this mobile internet skills training toolkit. It's been implemented by our partners in 40 countries and has impacted the life of 70 million people. And because the digital inclusion program in the GSMA, it's funded by the GSMA and our members, but also by development organizations, so UK government, Swedish government, as well as other partners. All of that content that has proven to be very effective to onboard people on the internet is made freely available, so it's an open resource. Even partners can adapt it with their logos or design, or we've worked with UNCDF in some countries where they've adapted the toolkit to specific needs in, for example, refugee settlements. So that's all freely available. And just to mention, I think corporate social responsibility is one thing, but I think it's more effective when these type of initiatives become core of the commercial interest of operators. So let's not create kind of these additional fees to the industry. In the end, to include everyone. It also needs to be profitable. But we've shown that through this mobile internet skills training, mobile operators can increase their data revenues. So we see a significant return on investment for the implementers. So it's about kind of creating that environment for profitability and social impact, and where do those two align? And then we have the most impact. That's where we have the most skill, and that's where we have the most sustainability of our impact as well.
Thank you. Any other question from the floor?
Thank you very much for the panelists. My name is Zaki Khouri. I'm with the World Bank. And I would like to have a better idea when we are talking about scalability and the inclusivity of the different DPI initiatives within the region here. What will be the role of private sector and also the collaboration between public and private in the same time? Thank you.
Maybe I direct this question to Marina, and maybe mainly after with the mobile operators.
Sure, I can start it off. I mean, I think you know, I'm going to be very honest. I think at the United Nations we were quite slow, right, to work with the private sector, and I think I'd say the last decade we finally understood, maybe you know, it's particular to our institution, that if you want to create those solutions, they have them, right? They're using them in everyday business, their, you know, market analysis, understanding of what their clients, the citizen needs. They know how to do it, to design it, to develop. So instead of reinventing the wheel, what you really have to bring in, you have to bring them into the systems. And for me, this SDG 17 about partnerships is very much also about that, about, you know, the term is maybe overused at this point, but I truly believe in it, in the co-creation, right? And DPI cannot happen without the design, the brains of the private sector. Now, a lot of people would then also say, you know, be cautious, because of course there is an interest, but I do agree there's a self-interest, of course, that drives the private sector, but I think it needs to be a win-win on both sides. And we have now, in particular also in this region, really try to bring them in, to bring them around the table. And I think in one of the CEOs last week who we met with, of a big telecommunication giant here, said, you know, what's good for society is good for me and the market. It's a win-win, you know, and if you have counterparts in the private sector that tick like that realize, you know, in functioning societies where everyone has access to markets and is a, you know, standing member of an economy, it's good for their own, you know, business anyway. You have to bring them in. And so we, I think, over the last decade, and again in Asia Pacific, I realized that happened a long time ago, those solutions were driven by their design ideas because they're far ahead. And we're also trying to engage with governments, saying, you know, I mean, the recommendation is don't sit in your ministry and start develop your own software tools, because not at the UN, and probably very few government bodies will ever have the capacities and the brains to do that. You know, go to the market, compare the solutions, and then tailor what's out there for your needs. But really in a symbiosis almost with the private sector, because they're just better than many of us to understand, analyze, design, and implement these sort of DPI solutions and tools that we really need.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy to respond to that as well. I think in terms of digital public infrastructure, it's for the industry. We're actually currently engaging with our members to better understand and define the role of the industry in that space, because it's quite new. A lot of the components the industry has a lot of experience on already. So for example, when we think about digital identity, the industry would benefit greatly from more people having formal proof of identification. So over 150 countries require proof of identification before registering for a SIM card. So before you can even start using mobile services, you need proof of ID. So once we have increased proof of identification, that just makes that process much smoother. In some countries, we've worked, or the industry worked together with governments on improving access to identification because of the vast agents and sales networks that mobile operators have. So when governments think about like how do we get the identification to the people in maybe most remote areas, in a lot of cases, mobile operators, they would have their sales agents there. So in some countries, Nigeria, for example, there was a partnership with the mobile operators and the government to have the mobile operator be assigned as an authentication provider. I mean, that's quite complex, so it might not work in every context, and there's many questions that need to be addressed, but that's just one example. And in terms of, I mentioned yesterday on a different panel, in terms of financial inclusion, it's all about growing the pie because we're competing against cash. 40% of value in the mobile money system is still cash in, cash out, or over-the-counter transactions. So if DPI can help with increasing that pie and have the different players in that ecosystem each take their part as part of the market, and then customers can decide if they want to use mobile money or a different type of provider for their payment services. So I think there's many ways that private sector can contribute and collaborate, but also DPI has, or what we see now in the different countries is there's so many different ways that DPI is being implemented, and that we're collectively thinking about new ways of implementing DPI. So it's different in every context how that will take shape.
Thank you very much. Mindful of time.
Danny, if I may just
Yeah.
intervene here about this concept from. I just would like to highlight what Ms. Marina said about the win-win situation. And it's not like anyone wants to control the game because the DPI is a big game that no one can control and no one can do it by his own. However, there is also the concept, and I'm talking here about practical experience, be part of it as someone from EgyPost in 2006. I joined EgyPost 2006, and I see the journey of public-private relations with a lot of strategic partners that contributed to what we have today, and other one who was not like having this win-win situations, was more like cherry-picking approach. So it's not easy, and it's not like being prejudiced to one of the parties. Any government institution would like, again, not to reinvent the wheel, because it's not easy to build your own applications or your own data centers. Actually, you need someone to provide you the service that you can trust, and it's secure. And if you are talking about trust, EgyPost is one of the most trusted brands in Egypt. We operate in Egypt since 1865, and we never lost the trust of our citizens. So it's not easy for us to give the data of our citizen, or even Baridi as one of the concepts. When we have, by the way, a public-private relationship with someone, a technology provider, that we work on it, and even I have my colleagues who already remake the structure of the data and the data governance about it. The data encryption is very important about this component because this is the future of the Egyptian government. Imagine all the Egyptian correspondences on this platform. So because we have this win-win approach, we reached to what we have today. The digital identity has to be on the national components. It's very sensitive, but the platform itself can be built, but in the same design that we feel trust and safe about this sensitive data that we exchange. So it's approach of partnership, and I believe the new term of public-private partnership, it's very important. That win-win situation, no government entity will decline such a partnership because it will contribute a lot of it. It's how the perspective itself, and it's quite challenging. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mindful of time, we'll take the last question from the floor before closing the session. The other table, please, in the back.
Your experience in the e-commerce. My question is for EgyPost, for Nermeen. it was very impressive that you made Ecom, which is a platform for the international, like what you said, the international trade across Africa. I want to know more, please, about it, and whether you are going to let partners like MNOs participate with you in this good initiative. Thanks.
Thanks so much for the question. Actually, the e-commerce is not just about e-commerce platforms. There is a lot of capacity and capabilities that you have to own from starting from the point of receiving the parcel until you deliver it. It's domestic or even in the international supply chain. Security requirements is emerging in a way that never been before, and it is connected to data. So interoperability among all your logistics partners all over the world, and the exchange of these data, and to facilitate the customs clearance process, to comply to security requirements, the customs requirements. This is the biggest challenge that we have managed to do through digitalization. And we are talking about here today, now we have enabled like thousands of Egyptian merchants to not only to ship at any point in Egypt, or even to request a pickup from Wasalha mobile app, but also to request for a cash collection on delivery, and to be deposited in their accounts with less than 24 hours. They receive the notification. They have a complete management system. If they don't have, they have the interface and their account in Egypt Post platform. This enables them to manage their shipments, to track it, to manage this cash collection, and it's moving cash to cashless, because we collect cash, but it is deposited, and by the electronic cards, he can make purchase and whatever do. So it's like we're trying to have this ecosystem of integrated logistics and financial services together to empower the SMEs. And one of the initiatives that we are working now collaboratively with several government entities is about how to facilitate the exportation of Egyptian products. On the same time, e-commerce, it is in the two directions. E-commerce could be a very luxurious commodity for a very rich person in a very prestigious district, or could be a very basic medication for someone in a very remote area. And that's why we need also to enable this. So for e-commerce, of course, we have this initiative with different African countries about having this platform, but we have gone through the supply chain and the operational readiness for e-commerce, and the new block is for showing the product of SMEs on this. And again, the social media channels is a very important way of showing the products. It's quite challenging to go with the concept of marketplaces now. So what we have focused on to be a logistic enabler for everyone to ship anywhere through a post office, as again, or even through the mobile app or a website of Wasalha. So that's why we're making this wide access, easy access. And even for the question of digital literacy, I believe it is the way you offer the service, the ease of doing it. It's made accessible for everyone. No one is taking like courses to go for Facebook or WhatsApp because it's easy. You just need to offer your service, your digital services, as easy as this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to move to the panelists again for the last word, reflection about the session. Maybe we start with Sylvia.
It was such a rich session, so where to start? I want to start with the last point on digital literacy. And I think it's important to keep in mind, and I fully agree, it's about making services accessible and user-friendly. I think one of the challenges in the region is also how do we go beyond the services and really engage or provide services that engage people with the digital platforms in a very productive way, to learn, to work, or to sell or buy and make a living. So I think that's one of the challenges. I think the second kind of takeaway is really on the practicality of it. And when we talk about the legal and the regulatory environment and how important that is to create a space for not just for the implementation of DPI, but really for it to be transformative, and how the legal environment or the legal framework has to be designed in a way that allows and gives a space for innovation, but also has very strong protection, data protection, privacy protection. And I think maybe the last takeaway, because 3 is the magic number, and I will stop there, is really about the importance of having all actors around the table. So we spoke about private sector involvement. I think each of us from the different point of views, UNDP, World Bank, from the government side, GSMA, we've heard very, very different perspectives. And I think that illustrates that each of the stakeholders has something very important to offer to this agenda. And as the microphone is falling, I think it's platforms like this also that it's good to have that conversation, to bring all actors around the table, because it is a challenging agenda. So let me stop here.
Thank you very much. Amelie?
Yeah, I'll keep it very short before my microphone falls, because we're over time. I think it's very important that we make sure that we take an inclusive approach to DPI and digital inclusion more broadly, and that we create the regulatory environment that really promotes innovation and private sector investment.
Thank you. Nermeen?
Thank you, Danny. I believe that the block we built for today will accelerate the building of tomorrow. And that's why it's about, it's very important, and I believe it's not impossible to have a proper, efficient DPI. And I believe the need of the societies and the push caused by pandemic make it, it's clear for us how it works and which direction we need to go. And I said it was a change and now transformation, and I believe the acceleration of the pace it's happening simply because it is needed by the societies and by the communities of the whole world. Thank you.
Thank you. Marina?
Also very, very briefly, I mean, obviously, I mean, the inclusion is massively, for us, a big point about it. It's about acceleration, but it's really at the end of the day, you know, if the region, if the countries want to participate in what is a global game, whether it's business, whether it's public debates, whether it's, you know, issues that are being decided and discussed at the global level that have an impact on each and one of every citizen, you need to push it, you need to be connected, and you need to bring your societies, your governments, your youth online and provide them with the tools that they can participate, that they can voice, and that they will enable the countries and the region to be connected to the global game, and you really have to be there. And I think that's why there is such a need to really, you know, accelerate the development throughout.
Thank you. Ava?
I just want to leave with one comment about the regulation. I believe the main issue in regulation is we have to work together with the private sector, with every stakeholder, and we agree that we always can find a common ground, and no one should be left behind. But at the end, we have to build a trust in this digital ecosystem, that everyone is represented and has a transparency. And at the end, we have to make this digital environment, it's a democratic environment, and everyone can have a say in it.
Thank you very much. And with that, we reach the end of our session. I would like to thank the participants for your time and the esteemed panel for the insightful contribution to the discussion. Thank you very much, and we look forward for future discussions on the topic. Just a group.